When billionaire Elon Musk unexpectedly returns home early on a stormy Tuesday evening, he discovers something that will change his life forever. His daughter Zara is crying alone in their California mansion, surrounded by years of artwork he never knew existed. Paintings that reveal a heartbreaking truth about their relationship he's been too busy to see. The reason behind her tears will force this world-changing innovator to confront his greatest failure: being a father. What happens next will surprise you and remind you that some of the most important work happens not in boardrooms or launch pads, but in the quiet moments between a parent and child. Elon Musk's Tesla Model S purred as it turned into the long driveway of his Bel Air mansion. The November rain tapped against the windshield like tiny fingers trying to get in. It was 9:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, hours earlier than anyone expected him home from SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne. The rocket test that was supposed to run until midnight had been scrubbed due to a sensor malfunction. He parked in the expansive garage next to his Cybertruck prototype and a vintage Lotus Esprit submarine car from The Spy Who Loved Me. The research house was quiet. Too quiet. Usually, the housekeeper left lights on in the main hallway, but tonight, shadows stretched across the marble floor like long, dark fingers. Elon loosened his tie as he walked through the foyer. The soft glow from the kitchen suggested someone was home. Grimes must be working late in her studio again, lost in her music. He thought about checking on the kids but decided against it. They'd be asleep by now, schoolwork finished, teeth brushed, stories told by the nanny. As he passed the grand staircase, something caught his ear, a sound so soft he almost missed it, like a wounded animal trying not to be heard. He stopped, tilting his head. There it was again, coming from upstairs, near the observatory room. Elon climbed the stairs two at a time, his sneakers silent on the thick carpet. The sound grew clearer. Someone was crying. Not the dramatic sobs of a child with a scraped knee or broken toy. This was the kind of crying people do when they think no one can hear them. Desperate and lonely. He followed the sound down the East Wing corridor, past family photos hanging on the walls that seemed to mock him now. Pictures of birthdays, holidays, achievements, all perfectly staged moments that suddenly felt hollow. The crying was coming from behind the heavy oak door of the observatory. Elon hesitated with his hand on the doorknob. He recognized that voice. Now. Zara. His heart tightened. What was his 15-year-old daughter doing up here alone at this hour? And why was she crying? He turned the knob slowly and pushed the door open just enough to peer inside. The observatory, with its dome ceiling and telescope pointed toward the stars, was dimly lit by the soft glow of planets and constellations projected on the walls. Zara's favorite nightlight since she was 8. She sat in the far corner, knees drawn up to her chest, arms wrapped around her legs. Her long, dark hair fell forward, hiding her face, but her shoulders shook with each quiet sob. Scattered around her were sketch pads and colored pencils, things he hadn't seen her use in years. Elon opened the door wider and the hinges creaked slightly. Zara's head snapped up. In the dim starlight, he could see her face was red and blotchy, her blue eyes so much like her mother Tallulah's, wide with surprise and something that looked like fear. "Dad?" Her voice cracked. She quickly wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to hide the evidence of her tears. "What are you doing home so early?" He stepped into the room, suddenly aware of how large he was in this space that felt sacred to her. "The test got cancelled. Sensor issue." His usual confident voice sounded uncertain even to his own ears. "Zara, what's wrong? Why are you crying? I'm not. The lie came automatically, but fresh tears betrayed her. She turned away, gathering her art supplies quickly, as if trying to hide something. Elon moved closer, but kept a respectful distance. In that moment, he realized he didn't know what to do. He could negotiate billion-dollar deals, solve engineering problems that baffled entire teams, design rockets to Mars, but comforting his own daughter? That felt like the hardest problem in the universe. You used to draw in here all the time, he said softly, gesturing to the sketch pads. When you were little. Zara stopped gathering her things and looked up at him. Really looked at him. For a second, he saw something in her eyes that made his chest feel tight. A mix of longing and disappointment that he couldn't place. I still do sometimes, she whispered. When I need to think. What do you need to think about? He sat down, on the window seat across from her, keeping the distance but showing he wasn't leaving. She hugged one of the sketch pads to her chest. Everything. Nothing. It doesn't matter. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the soft humming of the observatory's equipment. Outside, the rain had picked up, drumming against the glass dome above them. Elon studied his daughter's face. When had she grown up so much? When had the gap between them become so wide? He spent countless hours studying rocket trajectories and satellite orbits, but somehow missed the orbit of his own child's life. Talk to me, Zara, he said, his voice gentler than he'd heard it in months. Please. For a moment, he thought she might. Her lips parted, and he saw a glimmer of the little girl who used to share everything with him. But then, something closed off behind her eyes. You wouldn't understand, she said, not unkindly, just matter-of-factly. You're always working, always solving problems, always somewhere else. Before he could respond, before he could tell her that he wanted to understand, she asked a question that stopped him cold. Dad, do you remember what Mom told you the day she left? The question hung in the air like a satellite waiting for instructions. Elon felt his breath catch. He opened his mouth to answer, but no words came out. Because the truth was, he wasn't sure he did remember exactly what Tallulah had said that day. He'd been too focused on damage control, on managing the PR, on keeping the stock prices stable. Zara saw his hesitation and nodded, as if he'd confirmed something she already knew. She gathered the last of her art supplies and stood up. That's what I thought, she said quietly, and walked toward the door. As she passed him, Elon caught a glimpse of one of her drawings, a sketch of two figures sitting far apart, one consumed by swirling lines that looked like galaxies, the other barely visible, fading into the background. The door closed behind her with a soft click, leaving Elon alone in the observatory, surrounded by artificial stars, wondering when he'd become a stranger to his own daughter. The soft click of the door echoed in the observatory, leaving Elon alone in the half-darkness. He remained sitting on the window seat, staring at the spot where Zara had been, as if she might materialize again. The artificial stars continued their slow rotation across the ceiling, but now they felt cold and distant, like everything else in his life lately. Tallulah's last words. Why couldn't he remember them? He pressed his palms against his temples, trying to force the memory to surface. That day in 2016 flashed back suddenly, sharp and painful, like a migraine. December 31st, New Year's Eve, of all days. They'd tried to keep it quiet, to spare the kids, but 7-year-old Zara had overheard everything from the top of the stairs. You're a great man, Elon, Tallulah had said, standing in the same foyer where he'd just passed tonight. Her voice was calm, too calm, like she'd rehearsed this moment 100 times. "You'll probably change the world, but you're a terrible husband, and I'm afraid what that's teaching our daughter about love." The memory hit him like a physical blow. He remembered now. God, he remembered everything. How he'd been on his phone during the conversation, answering emails about the Model 3 production crisis. How he'd told her she was overreacting, that he just needed to get through this busy period at Tesla. How he'd promised to do better, knowing even then that his definition of better wasn't enough. And Zara. Sweet, artistic Zara. Watching from the stairs in her princess pajamas, clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. She'd seen the whole thing. Seen her mother pack her bags while her father checked stock prices on his laptop. Elon stood abruptly, pacing across the observatory floor. The sketchpad Zara had been holding lay forgotten in the corner. He picked it up, his hands trembling, slightly. Should he look? Every parenting instinct told him no, but something deeper, fear maybe, or guilt, made him open it anyway. The first drawings were from years ago. He could tell by the way she'd written the dates in careful, childlike numbers. There were pictures of rockets and cars, crude but enthusiastic drawings of him on stage at Tesla events, with "My dad is the coolest" written in bubble letters. Then came the family portraits. Him, Tallulah, and Zara as stick figures under a smiling sun. But as he flipped through the pages, the drawings changed. The sun disappeared. The stick figures grew further apart. In one drawing from 2017, Tallulah's figure was completely erased, leaving only smudges. The turning point was clear. Summer of 2017. The drawings became angry, dark. One showed a small figure labeled Zara, sitting at a dinner table with an empty chair marked Dad. Another depicted a girl painting alone, while robots and rockets swirled around an absent father figure. But there was something else. Patterns he hadn't noticed before. Every few pages there were sketches of him, not the public Elon Musk everyone knew, but intimate moments. Him laughing at something on TV, him deep in thought while working, him looking sad during one of his rare quiet moments. She'd been watching him, studying him, trying to understand him the only way she knew how. His phone buzzed, a text from Grimes. "Working late at the studio, don't wait up." Another one from his assistant. "Morning meeting moved to 7 a.m. Falcon Heavy update critical." And another from his mother. "Happy birthday to Zara. Don't forget." Elon froze. Today was November 14th. Zara's birthday was November 18th, 15th, tomorrow, and he'd completely forgotten. The guilt crashed over him like a wave. How many more moments had he missed? How many more birthdays had he marked with afterthought gifts ordered by assistants? When was the last time he'd actually sat down and talked to her, really talked, about anything beyond school grades and curfews? He flipped to the more recent pages. The artwork was sophisticated now, revealing real talent. But the themes remained the same: isolation, distance, longing. There was a series titled Empty Conversations, showing two figures sitting across from each other with speech bubbles full of symbols, rockets, dollar signs, mathematical equations, everything except actual words. The last completed drawing stopped him cold. It was dated 3 weeks ago. A self-portrait of Zara, but she'd drawn herself as a ghost, translucent and fading. The title read, "See Me." His chest tightened. When was the last time he'd really seen her? not just glanced at her across the dinner table or asked about homework in passing, but truly looked at his daughter. The Tesla production hell of 2017 and 2018 played through his mind like a highlight reel. Sleeping at the factory, working 120-hour weeks, living on caffeine pills and determination. He'd told himself then that he was doing it for his family, for their future. But sitting in this observatory now, surrounded by evidence of his daughter's slow fade from his life, he realized the horrible truth. He'd been doing it to escape. Work was quantifiable. Problems had solutions. Success had metrics. Family was messy. Emotions didn't follow algorithms. Love couldn't be optimized. The door creaked open, and Elon's heart jumped. He quickly closed the sketchpad, preparing to see Zara again. But it was Grimes, her platinum hair wet from the rain. "Babe," she said softly, "I got your text. You said you needed to talk?" He stared at her, confused. "I didn't text you." "Yes, you did. You said, oh." She paused, studying his face in the dim light. "What's wrong? You look terrible." "Grimes," he said, his voice hollow. "What day is tomorrow?" "November 15th. "Why?" He looked down at the closed sketchpad in his hands. "It's Zara's birthday." "I know. I already ordered her gift, remember? That art set she's been wanting?" Elon felt something break inside him. Even Grimes, who'd only known Zara for 3 years, remembered better than he did. "She was crying tonight," he said quietly. "In here, alone. And I realized I don't know my own daughter anymore." Grimes sat beside him on the window seat, close enough to offer comfort, but respecting the space he needed to process. "You've been working a lot lately. The Mars project, the Tesla launches. I'm always working. That's the problem." He opened the sketchpad again, showing her the "See Me" portrait. "Look at this. Look at what I've missed." She studied the drawing for a long moment. "She's talented. She's been talented all along. I haven't been paying attention." They sat in silence for a while, watching the artificial stars trace their endless patterns. Finally, Grimes spoke. "What did she ask you before she left?" Elon looked at her, surprised. "How did you know?" I could hear her question from the hallway. "Something about what her mom said the day she left?" He nodded slowly. "I couldn't remember. Not until she left the room. Then it all came back." He paused, the words caught in his throat. "Tallulah told me I was teaching Zara the wrong lesson about love, that I was showing her that work always comes first. And I guess I've spent the last 8 years proving her right." The rain had stopped, leaving the house in an eerie quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a clock chimed 11. Zara would be in her room now, probably still awake, maybe still drawing, maybe still crying. "Tomorrow," Grimes said softly. "You should cancel your morning meetings?" "I can't. The Falcon Heavy can wait one day. Your daughter can't." Elon looked at the sketchpad again, at the fading ghost of his daughter's self-portrait. For the first time in years, he felt truly lost. Not the kind of loss that came with complex engineering problems or business challenges, but the terrifying confusion of realizing you've been walking in the wrong direction for so long that you can't see the path back. She said, "I wouldn't understand," he whispered, "that I'm always somewhere else." "So prove her wrong," Grimes said simply. "Start tomorrow." "Start tonight." Elon stood, the sketchpad still in his hands. "How?" "Talk to her. really talk. Not about grades or curfews or college applications. Ask her what she's drawing, what she's feeling, what you've missed. He nodded slowly, but his feet felt rooted to the floor. What if she won't talk to me? Then keep trying. Keep showing up. Eventually, she'll see you're serious about being there. Elon looked at the door, then back at the sketch pad. She asked if I remembered what Tallulah said, and I didn't. Not at first, but you remember now. Yes. So go tell her. Tell her you remember. Tell her you heard what her mother was trying to warn you about, and that you want to change. The words hung in the air, simple and terrifying. Change. After 48 years of being exactly who he was, could he really change? Could he learn to be the father Zara needed instead of the father he thought he should be? Looking at her artwork, seeing himself through her eyes, the absent father, the workaholic, the stranger in his own home, Elon knew he had no choice. He turned toward the door, then paused. Grimes? Yeah? Thank you. For being here. For seeing what I couldn't. She smiled softly. Go talk to your daughter, Elon. She's been waiting a long time for you to really see her. As he left the observatory, sketchpad in hand, one thought echoed in his mind. Tomorrow was Zara's 16th birthday. For the first time in years, he wanted to make sure she knew he remembered. Not just the date, but her. The real her. With all her art and pain and desperate need to be seen. Maybe it wasn't too late to prove Tallulah wrong after all. Elon stood outside Zara's bedroom door, the sketch pad trembling slightly in his hands. It was past midnight now, technically her birthday already. The hallway was dark except for a thin line of light underneath her door. She was awake. He raised his hand to knock, then hesitated. What would he say? Hey, I just realized I've been a terrible father for the past 8 years, but happy birthday. The words felt empty before he even formed them. Instead, he turned and walked down the hall to the guest wing. There was a room there that hadn't been touched in years. Zara's old art studio. Grimes had suggested once that they convert it into a home gym, but Elon had declined without really knowing why. Now he understood. Some part of him had always known this space held something important. The door was locked, but he remembered where the spare key was hidden, behind a loose piece of wallpaper that Zara had discovered when she was 9. His heart pounded as he turned the key and pushed open the door. The smell hit him first. Acrylic paint, turpentine, and something else. Lavender? Zara must have been using this room more recently than he'd thought. He fumbled for the light switch, and when the overhead fluorescence flickered to life, he nearly dropped the sketch pad. The room was alive with art. Every wall was covered with drawings, paintings, and sketches tacked up, layered over each other, creating a visual history of Zara's inner world. But it wasn't random. As Elon walked deeper into the room, he realized everything was organized chronologically. The wall to his left started with finger paintings from when she was maybe 4 or 5. Bright, happy colors, suns with smiles, stick figures holding hands, a family. He moved along the wall, watching the art evolve. The colors became more sophisticated, the figures more detailed. There was a series of family portraits from 2015, before the second divorce. Him, Tallulah, and Zara at various Tesla launch events, at SpaceX tours, at birthday parties. They all looked so happy. Then, 2016. The colors started to fade. The smiles became uncertain lines. One portrait showed the 3 of them, but Tallulah was drawn in lighter pencil, as if she was already disappearing. Another showed Elon on his phone, while Zara tried to show him something. 2017 changed everything. The wall was dominated by angry reds and blacks. Portraits of Elon became increasingly distorted. His face replaced with computer screens, his body made of circuit boards and rocket engines. One painting showed him as a giant robot, towering over a tiny Zara who was trying to get his attention. But there was something else. Tucked between the angry paintings were quieter pieces. Self-portraits, where Zara drew herself sleeping, dreaming about flying with birds, painting under star-filled skies. These were the moments she'd created alone, the private world she'd escaped to when reality became too painful. Elon moved to the center wall, where the most recent work hung, his breath caught in his throat. There was a series titled Letters Never Sent. Dozens of drawings that looked like letters, each one addressed to Dad. The first one, dated 2018, showed a child's handwriting in crayon. "Dear Dad, I painted you a rocket. Come see it when you get home. Love, Zara." But the rocket in the drawing had flowers growing out of it, and little birds nesting in its engines, a child's way of making something cold and mechanical feel warm and alive. Another from 2019. "Dear Dad, Mom says you're changing the world. I'm proud of you. I drew us fixing a car together like Grandma says you did with Grandpa. I wish we could fix things together too." 2020. "Dear Dad, I won the school art contest. The theme was Heroes. I painted you reaching for the stars, but I'm not sure if you'd like it. The other kids say their parents come to the award ceremony. Will you? Love, Zara." Elon had to stop reading. Each letter was a memory he didn't have, a moment he'd missed, a connection he'd failed to make. But the devastating part was how long she'd kept trying, how many chances he'd had to change course. He continued along the wall, watching the art become more complex, more sophisticated, but also more desperate. There was a series of paintings, showing doors, closed doors, locked doors, doors with light behind them that couldn't be reached. Another series showed telescopes pointed in different directions, searching, always searching. Then he found it. The wall on the right was different. These weren't letters or portraits. These were conversations. Real conversations she'd imagined, having with him. Conversations with Dad, the collection, was written in beautiful calligraphy across the top. Below it, dozens of paintings showing two chairs. In each one, she sat in one chair while the other remained empty. The empty chair changed slightly in each painting. Sometimes it had a laptop on it, sometimes blueprints, sometimes just a ghostly outline of a person who was always about to arrive but never did. One painting showed the empty chair spinning, as if someone had just left. Another showed it covered in dust. The most recent one, dated just last month, showed the empty chair beginning to fade away, like it was giving up hope that anyone would ever sit in it. Elon sank into a paint-stained chair in the corner of the room, finally understanding the full weight of what he'd lost. This wasn't just about missing birthdays or being late to school events. Zara had created an entire parallel relationship with him through her art, the relationship she wished they had. He stood and walked to the far corner, where he noticed something covered with a paint-splattered sheet. Pulling it back revealed an easel with a large canvas. The painting wasn't finished, but he could see what it was meant to be. Two figures, one tall, one smaller, standing side by side in front of a rocket. But instead of looking at the rocket, they were looking at each other. The tall figure's face was blank, waiting to be filled in, like she couldn't imagine what expression he might wear if he actually looked at her instead of his work. At the bottom, in small but clear letters, was written, "The girl who loved rockets." Below that, even smaller, "But do the rockets love her back?" His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Are you in there?" He looked around, confused, then realized the number was Zara's. She'd changed phones recently, he remembered vaguely. "Yes," he typed back. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, "You found my room. Why didn't you tell me you still painted?" The dots pulsed for a long time. "You never asked." Elon looked around the room again, seeing it with fresh eyes. Not just a collection of art, but a diary. A record of every moment he'd missed, every conversation they'd never had, every time she'd needed him and he hadn't been there. "Can we talk?" he typed. "It's late, and you have that early meeting with SpaceX." His heart sank. Even now, even on her birthday, she was protecting him from emotional disruption that might affect his work. "I canceled it," he lied. He would. First Earth's thing in the morning. Dots appeared and disappeared several times. Then, "I'll come down." He heard her footsteps in the hallway, soft and hesitant. When she appeared in the doorway, she was wearing the same paint-stained overalls from one of her earliest self-portraits. She must have been working late into the night. For a moment, they just looked at each other. Elon noticed details he'd missed earlier: paint under her fingernails, dark circles under her eyes, the way she hugged her arms around herself like she was trying to make herself smaller. "How long have you been coming here?" he asked softly. "Since Mom left. Sometimes every night. Sometimes just when..." She trailed off. "When what?" "When I need to talk to you, but you're not available." The simple honesty of it destroyed him. "Zara, I don't." She held up a hand, but not angrily. "I already know what you're going to say. That you're sorry, that you'll do better, that work has been crazy, but things will slow down soon." She walked to the wall of Conversations with Dad and pointed to one painting where both chairs had speech bubbles full of the exact words she'd just said coming from the empty chair. "I've had these conversations with you 100 times in my head," she continued. "I know all your responses." Elon looked at the painting, seeing himself through her eyes again. How predictable he'd become. How rehearsed his excuses were. "What if I said something different?" he asked quietly. Zara turned to face him, and for the first time that night, he saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, quickly buried behind skepticism. Like, "What?" He took a breath, knowing this was his moment. The chance to step off the script she'd imagined for him, to prove he could be more than the absent father in her paintings. Like, "What does this mean?" He pointed to the unfinished painting of them looking at each other instead of the rocket. "The girl who loved rockets. Did you mean you, or..." She looked at him for a long moment, as if deciding whether he deserved the truth. "Finally," she said, "I was 7 when you took me to see the first Falcon Heavy launch. You were so excited, pointing everything out, explaining how it all worked. But I wasn't watching the rocket. I was watching you." She moved to another painting he hadn't noticed before. A child's drawing of a man's profile, looking up at the sky with an expression of pure wonder, while a small girl looked up at the man with the same expression. "I fell in love with rockets. Because you loved them. Because when you talked about space, you got this light in your eyes, and I wanted to understand what you saw up there. I wanted to be part of that world with you." His throat felt tight. "You still can be." "Can I?" She gestured at all the empty chairs, all the missed conversations, all the years of loving something just to have a connection to him. You never asked why I stopped drawing where you could see me. The question hung in the air like a satellite, waiting for its trajectory to be calculated. Elon realized that everything, all of it, had led to this moment. Every missed birthday, every canceled dinner, every time he'd chosen email over conversation, had created this room full of ghost relationships and imagined love. "Why did you stop?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Zara walked to a painting, near the door that he'd missed when he first came in. It showed a girl holding up a drawing to a man who was looking at his phone. The man's speech bubble said, "That's nice, sweetie." But his eyes were clearly on the screen, not the art. "Because I realized you weren't really seeing them anyway," she said quietly. "You were seeing what you expected to see, your talented daughter, doing well, staying out of trouble, being fine. You never looked long enough to see what I was actually drawing." Her voice gained strength as she continued, "You never saw that I drew you as a hero in every picture, even when I was angry. You never noticed that I kept painting stars even in my darkest work, because I still believed you were reaching for something beautiful. You never asked why I painted so many empty chairs, or why I always left space for you in every family portrait, even after you stopped being in my life." She pointed to the most recent empty chair painting. "I stopped putting your name on the chair 3 months ago. Started just writing someone instead. I guess I finally accepted that the dad who sits in my painted conversations isn't the same dad who exists in real life." The room felt impossibly quiet. Elon looked around at the thousands of pieces of art, each one a child's attempt to be seen, to be understood, to be loved in the language she spoke best. And he'd been deaf to all of it. "I want to learn your language, Zara," he said finally. "I want to understand what you've been trying to tell me all these years." She studied his face, and he could see her weighing his words against years of disappointment. "It's too late for finger painting lessons, Dad." "No," he said firmly. "But maybe it's not too late for conversation lessons. Real ones. Starting now." Zara leaned against her easel, the unfinished painting of them looking at each other catching the overhead light. "What if you don't like what I have to say?" Elon thought about all the conversations she'd imagined, all the responses she'd predicted, all the ways she'd learned to protect herself from his absence. "Then we'll figure it out together," he said. "But this time, I promise to listen to the real you, not the version of you that's easy for me to understand." For the first time that night, Zara's carefully maintained wall started to crack. Her eyes filled with tears, but she didn't turn away. "Will you sit in the chair?" she asked, pointing to the empty one in her most recent painting. Elon walked to the easel and positioned a real chair next to the painted one. He sat down, and for the first time in years, he was exactly where his daughter needed him to be. "Happy birthday, Zara," he said softly. "I'm here, really here, and I'd like to know about the rockets." She sat in the other chair, and for a moment, they were just a father and daughter, surrounded by years of missed connections, finally occupying the same space. "I stopped loving rockets," she admitted, "but I never stopped loving the man who created them." In the corner of the room, the unfinished painting waited, the blank face still needing to be filled in with the expression of a father who finally sees his daughter. Tonight, for the first time in 8 years, Zara knew exactly what expression to paint. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of 8 lost years settling between them like dust. Elon noticed Zara picking at a dried paint spot on her overalls, a nervous habit he'd never seen before. How many other small things didn't he know about his own daughter? "You said you stopped loving rockets," he began carefully, "but you still paint them." Zara glanced at the unfinished canvas behind her. I paint what I can't have, what I can't understand anymore. Try me. She looked at him skeptically. When was the last time you asked me about anything that wasn't school-related? The question stung because she was right. He searched his memory and came up empty. I don't remember. It was 2 years ago. You asked if I wanted to visit SpaceX for my 14th birthday. I said yes, but you canceled 3 days before because of the rocket explosion in Boca Chica. He remembered the explosion, a setback that had cost them millions and months of progress. But he didn't remember her birthday plans. I'm sorry, he said automatically, then caught himself. She'd predicted this response too, painted it on those empty chairs. No, I'm not just sorry. I'm mortified, and I want to do better. Zara studied his face. You know what the hardest part is? Tell me. Everyone at school knows who you are. When I introduced myself, people didn't see Zara Riley Musk. They saw dollar signs. They saw fame. They saw someone whose problems don't matter because Daddy has billions. She stood up and walked to a series of paintings he hadn't noticed before. Each one showed her in different situations. A classroom where she was outlined in gold while everyone else was gray. A lunch table where she sat alone despite being surrounded by people. A school hallway where kids took selfies near her, but never with her. These are from Jefferson High, she explained. When you enrolled me there, you said it was the best academic environment in LA. It is. The science program, Dad. She cut him off gently. It's a pressure cooker. 90% of the kids are from tech families, Silicon Beach royalty. But even among them, I'm different. She pointed to another painting. Last year, during Career Day, Mr. Patterson asked parents to speak about their jobs. Everyone was excited when they heard you might come. Elon felt his stomach sink. I was in Shanghai that week. The Gigafactory, I know. I told everyone you'd video call. You didn't. I sat there while Jake Brenner's dad, who works at Google, gave a presentation about AI, while Sarah Chen's mom from Apple talked about hardware design, and my chair remained empty. The painting showed a classroom with one empty chair at the front, while a girl slumped at a desk, her face hidden behind her hands. The next day, someone taped a rocket cutout to my locker with "Maybe Daddy's too busy saving Mars to save his kid" written on it. Elon felt anger rise in his chest, quickly followed by shame. Did you tell anyone? Who would I tell? You? You were announcing the Cybertruck that week. Security? They'd make it worse. I just painted it out. She moved to a darker corner where a series titled Wait hung. These paintings were different, heavy, oppressive. One showed her carrying a backpack made of rockets and cars, growing too heavy to bear. Another depicted her drowning in gold coins while reaching for a life preserver shaped like a normal family. It's not just school, Dad. It's everywhere. Dating is impossible. Boys either want to use me to get to you, or they're too intimidated to even talk to me. My friends' parents invite me over so they can casually ask about Tesla stock tips. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through screenshots. Look at my DMs, dozens of messages from strangers. Can your dad buy me a Tesla? Tell Elon I have this great app idea. Do you get free rockets for Christmas? What's it like being rich? Bet Daddy pays for everything, huh? And the ones from school are worse, she continued. They call me Trust Fund Baby behind my back. Rocket Girl. Musk money. Her voice cracked slightly. Never just Zara. Elon had never considered this. In his world, fame was a tool. Wealth was a resource. Success was a metric to be optimized. But for a 15-year-old girl just trying to find her place in the world, they were suffocating weights. "There's more," she said, pulling up a website on her phone. "Do you know about the Musk family snark forums?" The what? Online groups dedicated to criticizing our family. They post paparazzi photos, analyze our clothes, rate our appearances. They call you names I won't repeat, call Grimes a gold digger, and say I'm probably messed up from having celebrity parents. She showed him the screen, hundreds of comments dissecting every public appearance, every photo, every rumor. Someone had even created a poll. Which Musk kid will rebel first? Zara was winning. "I had to delete all my social media," she said quietly. "Every post got flooded with comments about you. People following me just to get closer to our family drama. Paparazzi outside school. Fake profiles of boys from other schools trying to friend me." The paintings around them suddenly made more sense. The isolation, the empty chairs, the desperate attempts to be seen for who she really was, not as an extension of him. "Last month," she continued, "someone posted our home address on Reddit. Security had to change the gate codes. Grimes couldn't go to the grocery store alone. Do you remember any of this?" He didn't. He'd been in Austin overseeing the Texas Gigafactory expansion. His security team had handled everything without bothering him with the details. "I'm scared to leave the house sometimes," she admitted. "Not because of physical danger, but because I don't know if people are talking to me or my last name." She moved to a new section of paintings, these hidden behind a curtain he hadn't noticed before. When she pulled it back, he saw they were all self-portraits. But these were different. In each one, she'd painted herself with various disguises, different hair colors, styles, clothes. In one, she was completely disguised as someone else, brown eyes instead of blue, different bone structure, different life entirely. "I fantasize about being normal," she said. "Going to a small school where nobody knows who my father is, having sleepovers where we talk about boys and homework, not stock prices and space exploration, dating someone who likes me for my terrible jokes and good taste in music, not my genetic lottery win." The last painting in the series showed her as a completely different person. Average-looking, average family, average life. And she was smiling in a way he'd never seen in any family photo. "Sometimes I can't breathe," she confessed. "The pressure to be perfect, because everything I do reflects on you. To be grateful, because I have opportunities other kids don't. To never complain, because some people have real problems." She gestured to another painting showing a girl in a glass house, everyone watching, everyone judging, everyone having opinions about her life while she tried to just exist. "I love you, Dad. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, but I hate what comes with it. I hate that I can't have a bad day without wondering if someone will post it online. I hate that I can't pursue art without people saying I only got opportunities because of my name. I hate that I can't fail at anything without it becoming a story about Elon Musk's troubled daughter." Her voice grew stronger, more bitter. "Do you know what I hear most? You're so lucky. People tell me how lucky I am. They don't see the therapy sessions, the anxiety attacks, the feeling of never being enough because I'll never achieve what you have, but also being too much, because I'm not allowed to be just normal Zara with normal problems." She walked to her easel and started mixing paints, her hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Want to know the worst part? Yes. I do understand the rockets now. I understand why you love them so much. she began painting broad strokes on a new canvas, dark blues and blacks. They're clean, logical. They follow the laws of physics. They don't have messy emotions or complicated relationships or social media accounts. She added streaks of silver to the canvas. They launch, they fly, they land, success or failure. Binary, simple. But people aren't rockets, Elon said softly. Exactly. She dipped her brush in red paint. And I think sometimes you forget that. You optimize us like we're system parameters. You problem solve us like we're engineering challenges. You love us like we're projects. The red paint spread across the canvas in angry slashes. I'm not a rocket, Dad. I'm not a model, or a prototype, or a beta version to be improved. I'm just... She paused, the brush hovering mid-air. I'm just your daughter who misses you, even when you're in the same room. They stood in silence again. The truth of her words filled the space between them, heavy and undeniable. Elon watched her paint, seeing the anger and pain flow from her brush onto the canvas. How had he missed all of this? How had he been so focused on changing the world that he'd failed to see the world crushing his own child? I don't know how to fix this, he admitted. I don't know how to make your life easier without making it different. And I don't think I can make it different. Zara stopped painting and looked at him. I don't need you to fix it. I need you to see it. To acknowledge that being Elon Musk's daughter isn't all rocket launches and red carpets. It's also panic attacks before school and sleeping pills and fake friends and feeling like I'm living in a fishbowl. She set down her brush and wiped her hands on a rag. I need you to understand that when I cry, it's not because I'm ungrateful. It's because sometimes the weight of carrying our last name is too heavy, even for art to help. What can I do? He asked. And this time, it wasn't the question of a man trying to engineer a solution. It was the question of a father who had finally, truly, begun to understand his daughter's pain. Zara looked at the painting she'd just started, those angry reds now softening into something that might become hopeful blues. You can start by finishing what you started tonight. Sit in the chair, have the conversations. See me, really see me, not as an extension of your legacy, but as a person who's trying to figure out how to be both Zara and a Musk without losing herself completely. She pulled another chair over to face the easel. And maybe you could help me finish this painting. Not by fixing it or making it better, but by being here while I work through whatever comes out. Elon sat down, watching his daughter return to her canvas. For the first time, he wasn't thinking about quarterly reports or launch schedules or market disruption. He was thinking about the complexity of a 15-year-old girl carrying the weight of his dreams alongside her own. "What are you painting?" he asked, genuinely curious. She smiled, a real smile that reached her eyes. "A bridge," she said, "between two worlds. I don't know if it'll work, but I know what happens if I don't try." As she painted, Elon saw more than just an image emerging on the canvas. He saw his daughter's courage in the face of a burden she never asked to carry. He saw the artist who had documented their disintegration and was now brave enough to attempt their reconstruction. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking about the next meeting or the next launch or the next problem to solve. He was simply present with his daughter as she painted her way toward a future where they might coexist, not as CEO and company asset, not as famous father and scrutinized daughter, but as two people who were finally beginning to understand each other. "Zara," he said softly. "Yeah?" From now on, when people ask what it's like being Elon Musk's daughter, you can tell them the truth. All of it. Even the parts that aren't pretty. She paused, brush in midair. "You'd really be okay with that?" I'd rather have an honest daughter than a perfect public image. She nodded and continued painting, but he noticed her shoulders relaxed, slightly, as if some invisible weight had finally begun to lift. Outside, the California night was giving way to the first hints of dawn. It was officially her 16th birthday, and for the first time in years, they were both exactly where they needed to be. The first rays of sunlight filtered through the art room's skylight, casting long shadows across the canvas Zara was working on. The bridge she was painting had taken shape throughout the night, two sides of a chasm with delicate brush strokes connecting them, but something in her posture had changed. Her hands moved slower, her breathing had become shallow. Zara? Elon noticed her pause mid-stroke, the brush trembling in her hand. She set the brush down and wrapped her arms around herself. "Dad, there's something else. Something I haven't told anyone." The weight in her voice made him lean forward. "What is it?" I've been seeing someone. A therapist." She said it like a confession, like she expected anger or disappointment. "That's good," he said carefully. "I'm glad you have someone to talk to." She laughed, but it was a hollow sound. "Dr. Martinez says I have severe anxiety and depression. She's been helping me for 2 years. I pay for it with the allowance money you automatically transfer to my account." The automatic transfer. Another system he'd set up and forgotten about, assuming it was enough that money could substitute for presence. 2 years, he repeated slowly. "Why didn't you tell you?" She stood abruptly, pacing the small room. "Because you don't handle emotional emergencies well, Dad. You handle rocket emergencies, stock market crashes, technical failures. But when people break, you delegate." She pulled out her phone again, scrolling through her photos. "Do you remember this?" She showed him a screenshot of a text conversation, his name at the top, her telling him she'd had a panic attack during a calculus test. His response, "Talk to your mother. I'm in a board meeting." He did remember now. The text had come during the worst of the Model Y production crisis. He'd been in back-to-back meetings for 14 hours straight. He'd assumed Tallulah would handle it, except Tallulah lived in England now. "Who did you talk to?" he asked quietly. "No one. I locked myself in the school bathroom for an hour. Eventually, the school nurse found me. They called Grimes, and she picked me up." Another weight on the scales of his failures. Grimes, who wasn't even technically family, had been more present than he had. "There's more," Zara continued, her voice getting smaller. 3 months ago, I tried to run away." Elon's heart stopped. "What?" "To Mom's place in England. I had it all planned out. Took an Uber to LAX with my emergency credit card, bought a ticket, even made it through security." She sat down on the floor, hugging her knees. "Security found me at the gate. Your team has alerts on all my cards, apparently. They brought me home. Told you I'd had a minor incident and increased surveillance." The room felt airless suddenly. "Nobody told me you tried to leave, because you told them not to bother you with minor family issues unless it was life-threatening. They classified it as an attempt to visit Mom without permission, not what it really was." Which was? An escape attempt. From the suffocation of being your daughter. She pulled up more screenshots on her phone, showing him texts from that night. Messages to him that had gone unanswered while he was at the Boring Company launch event. "Dad, I can't do this anymore. Dad, please call me. Dad, I need to talk to you. It's important." Below those, messages to her mother. "Mom, I'm coming home. I need to be somewhere I can breathe. I'm sorry, but I can't pretend to be okay anymore." And then, The final text, sent to no one. Maybe if I disappear, he'll finally notice. Elon felt physically sick. While he'd been celebrating underground tunnel achievements, his daughter had been so desperate she'd tried to flee to another country. The security footage shows you at the gate for 3 hours, he said, realizing he must have reviewed the reports eventually. I couldn't board the plane. Not because they stopped me, but because... She looked at him, tears finally spilling over. Because I kept hoping you'd call. That somehow, through all those alerts and notifications, you'd realize something was really wrong and you'd call. Zara. I sat there watching families board, watching other dads walk their kids to gates for summer camps and college visits, and I couldn't even get mine to respond to a text that said I needed him. She wiped her eyes with paint-stained hands, leaving smudges of color on her cheeks. Security picked me up, drove me home, and the next day at breakfast, you asked if I'd slept well. You had no idea your daughter had just attempted her first real rebellion, her first real cry for help. I'm so sorry, he whispered, but the words felt pathetically inadequate. Don't be sorry, she said fiercely. Be awake. Be present. Be scared. With me, that I got to the point where running away felt like the only option. She stood up and walked to another hidden corner of the room, pulling out what looked like a journal. Dr. Martinez makes me write down my thoughts, especially the dark ones. She opened to a page dated 3.5 months ago. Dear Dad, she read aloud, by the time you read this, I'll be gone. Not forever, maybe. Just until I figure out how to be me without drowning in us. I know you'll be angry. I know you'll blame yourself. But don't. You're too busy saving humanity to save just me, and that's okay. Someone has to launch the rockets. Someone has to plan for Mars. I just can't be that someone's daughter anymore. Love, Zara. She turned the page. But I couldn't leave it at that. Her voice cracked as she continued reading. P.S. I hope someday you read this and understand that I wasn't running from you. I was running to myself. There's a difference. I'm sorry I couldn't explain it better in person. We don't really talk anymore, do we? I love you, Dad. I just need to love myself first. Elon was quiet for a long time, processing the depth of pain his daughter had been carrying, that she still was carrying. Show me the rest, he said finally. She flipped through pages, revealing journal entries that documented her deteriorating mental state over the past 2 years. Sessions with Dr. Martinez about coping mechanisms for anxiety. Lists of techniques to manage panic attacks. Sketches of what she called escape routes. Plans for different ways to disappear. This one's from 6 months ago, she said, stopping at a page filled with tiny, cramped handwriting. Today I realized I have 2 versions of myself. Zara, who everyone sees, successful, privileged, well-adjusted daughter of a genius. And Zara, who cries in empty art rooms because she can't remember the last time her dad asked her a question he didn't already know the answer to. She flipped forward. And this one from last month. Dr. Martinez asked what I want most in the gaze world. Not fame or money or opportunities, just, I want my dad to see me fail at something and still love me. I want to disappoint him just once without feeling like I'm letting down humanity's future. The entries painted a picture he couldn't have imagined. A girl maintaining perfect grades while battling crippling anxiety. Learning to manage panic. Attacks by herself. Creating elaborate art projects to express feelings she couldn't voice. Protecting him from her own breakdown because she knew how he reacted to emotional chaos. There's something else, she said. her voice barely audible. Now. She showed him her phone again, but this time it was her messages, not screenshots. I get death threats. What? People figure out my account somehow. They send messages saying, if I don't give them money, if I don't get them access to you, terrible things will happen. She scrolled through dozens of messages. Anonymous accounts, threatening to expose family secrets, to hurt her, to hurt him. Some were obviously fake, but others... These aren't all pranks, Elon said, his protective instincts firing. We need to report. Dad. She put her hand on his arm. Security knows. They filter most of them, but some get through. And every time I open my phone, I wonder if today's the day something real comes. She showed him one more thing. A private Instagram account with 0 followers that she'd created just to document the harassment. Screenshot after screenshot of DMs, comments, mentions, people calling her names, making sexual comments, threatening her safety, all because of who her father was. I can't date. I can't make friends easily. I can't fail publicly. I can't succeed without suspicion. And I can't even exist online without constant reminders that I'm seen as your possession, your extension, your weakness. Her voice grew stronger again, but brittle. And through all of this, you've been... Where? At launches, in meetings, solving problems that affect millions, while I learned to solve my own problems that affected just me. She closed the journal and set it aside. That night at the airport, sitting at the gate, I had a realization. I was waiting for you to save me from a situation that you'd created by not being there to save me from 100 smaller situations before that. The sun was fully up now, painting the room in warm light that felt absurdly cheerful given the conversation. Elon looked at his daughter, really looked, and saw not just the pain he'd caused through absence, but the strength she'd developed in spite of it. I'm terrified, she admitted finally. Terrified that it's too late. That we've both been pretending everything's fine for so long that we don't know how to be real with each other anymore. She gestured to all the paintings around them. This room is the only place I can be honest, where I can show how much I needed you without feeling like I'm burdening the man who's supposed to save the world. Elon stood up slowly, his mind reeling from the weight of her revelations. The failed runway attempt, the death threats, the therapy sessions, the depression, all of it happening in parallel to his public successes. Invisible to him in his singular focus on everything except what was happening in his own home. I don't know how to undo this, he said honestly. I don't know how to protect you from the consequences of who I am, while also being the father you need. Zara wiped her eyes again, leaving more paint streaks. Maybe you can't. Maybe there's no solution that makes this easy. But you can stop optimizing us like a system failure and start seeing us as humans who break in non-logical ways. She picked up her brush again, adding more colors to the bridge painting. I don't need you to fix it all, Dad. I need you to sit in this mess with me, to understand that sometimes your daughter is going to cry and panic and want to run away, and the solution isn't more security or better therapy or a bigger allowance. What is the solution? He asked, genuinely at a loss. She looked at him, over the canvas, and for the first time in the conversation, she almost smiled. Maybe there isn't one. Maybe some problems don't need solutions. Maybe they just need witnesses. The morning light caught the wet paint on her canvas, making the colors shimmer. The bridge she was painting wasn't just connecting two sides of a chasm. It was spanning the distance between who they'd been and who they might become. "I'm scared too, Dad," she said softly. "Scared that even now, even after telling you everything, you'll go back to your world and I'll go back to mine and nothing will really change." Elon sat back down, not in his chair but on the floor next to her, at eye level. "I can't promise I'll be perfect. I can't promise I won't make more mistakes. But I promise you this. I will never again let you carry this alone." She nodded, tears still falling but somehow looking lighter. "And I promise to stop protecting you from my problems. Even if they're messy, even if they don't have engineering solutions." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of revelation settling around them like dust after an explosion. The morning was moving forward, time passing as it always did. But something fundamental had shifted. "Your birthday," Elon said suddenly. "We need to celebrate your birthday." Zara laughed, a real laugh this time. "Dad, it's 6 a.m. and I just trauma-dumped 8 years of damage on you. I think traditional birthday celebrations might be off the table." "Then, let's make a new tradition," he said, surprising himself. "Paint with me. Teach me your language. Help me see what you see." She handed him a brush, and for the first time in either of their memories, they created something together that had nothing to do with rockets or cars or saving the world. Just a father and daughter, covered in paint, slowly building a bridge between yesterday's mistakes and tomorrow's possibilities. "Happy birthday, Zara," he said again, but this time the words carried the weight of everything they'd shared in this room, everything they'd lost, and everything they hoped to find. "Thanks, Dad," she replied, mixing new colors on her palette. For finally sitting in the chair. They painted in companionable silence for the next hour, Elon following Zara's gentle instructions on brush strokes and color mixing. His hands were clumsy with the delicate work, but she didn't correct him harshly, just guided his movements with patient touches to his wrist. "Like this," she said, showing him how to create texture in the clouds above their painted bridge. "Oil paint needs confidence. You can't hesitate." Elon tried to mimic her strokes, but made a mess instead. The cloud looked more like an explosion. Without thinking, he laughed, a sound that surprised them both. "What's funny?" Zara asked, but she was smiling too. "I've never been bad at anything in front of you before," he admitted. "I've always either been working or giving you perfect solutions, never just failing at something while you watched." She dipped her brush in white paint. "It's weird, right? I spent years being terrified of disappointing you, and here you are, making the world's ugliest cloud, and I'm not horrified." "Just mildly embarrassed for me," he suggested. "Exactly." She helped him blend the harsh edges of his cloud attempt. "It's almost like you're human." The words hit him differently than she'd probably intended. For the first time in decades, Elon felt his carefully constructed walls begin to crack. Not just intellectually understanding his failures as a father, but feeling them. "Zara," he said quietly, setting down his brush. "I need to tell you something." She paused, watching his face carefully. "Okay. When your mom left, both times, I threw myself even harder into work because it was the one place where I could control outcomes, where problems had solutions, where success was measurable." He stared at the paint-covered palette, the colors swirling together in unplanned patterns. "I didn't know how to fix a broken marriage, but I knew how to fix a rocket engine. I couldn't make your mother happy, but I could make shareholders happy. I couldn't navigate family emotions, but I could navigate launch sequences." His voice grew quieter. "After the second divorce, when you were 7, I had a choice. I could learn to be a different kind of father, or I could be the father I already knew how to be the provider, the problem solver, the man who was building a future. "You chose rockets," Zara said. It wasn't accusatory, just a statement of fact. I chose what I understood. And I told myself I was doing it for you, for your future, for humanity's future. But sitting here now, covered in paint. He looked down at his stained hands, his wrinkled clothes from a night without sleep. "I think I was just scared." "Of what?" Elon took a deep breath. "Of being like my father." The words hung in the air. Zara set down her brush completely now, turning to face him. "Grandpa Errol? My father was brilliant. Engineer, pilot, sailor. But he was." Elon struggled with the words. He was present, but unavailable. Physically there, but emotionally absent. Critical of everything, supportive of nothing. He taught me that love was conditional on achievement. He looked at his daughter directly. "I swore I'd be different. I'd give you opportunities he never gave me. I'd support your dreams, encourage your growth. But somewhere along the way, I became the same thing, just on the opposite end of the spectrum." How? He was there, and critical. I was absent, and what? Not critical enough? Too permissive? Elon rubbed his temples. "I thought if I just loved you unconditionally from a distance, if I never put pressure on you, if I just provided everything you needed." "You thought absence was the opposite of his presence," Zara finished. "But they're both just different versions of not being seen." The simplicity of her observation broke something in him. Everything he'd built, every wall he'd constructed around his emotions, every rationalization for why work came first, it all crumbled in the face of that truth. "I don't know how to be a father," he admitted, and the confession felt like jumping off a cliff. "I've built companies from nothing. I've designed rockets. I've revolutionized industries. But I don't know how to have a conversation with my daughter without turning it into a project or a problem to solve." Tears he'd been holding back for years began to fall. Not pretty, neat tears, but the ugly, wrenching sobs of a man who'd spent decades avoiding grief and was finally feeling its full weight. "I'm terrified that it's too late," he choked out. "That I've damaged you irreparably. That you'll always see me as the father who wasn't there when you needed him." Zara moved her canvas aside and sat closer to him. She didn't hug him. They hadn't had that kind of physical closeness in years. But she extended her paint-covered hand toward his. "Dad," she said softly, "I'm damaged. That's true. But not irreparably. And you know what? So are you." He looked at her through blurry eyes. "How do you know that?" "Because you're here, at 6:30 a.m. on my birthday, crying over paint in my secret art room, admitting you don't know what you're doing. The father who had all the answers wouldn't be here." She squeezed his hand gently. "And for what it's worth, I never wanted the perfect solutions anyway. I just wanted my dad." The simplicity of that statement undid him completely. He cried for the 7-year-old who watched her mother leave while he checked email. He cried for the 10-year-old who wrote letters he never read. He cried for the 15-year-old who tried to run away, looking for him at the airport gate even as she attempted to escape him. "I don't deserve this," he managed between sobs. "I don't deserve another chance." Zara considered this. "Maybe not, but I'm not painting this bridge for you. I'm painting it for me, because I need to believe that we can be different going forward." She pulled out her sketch pad again, flipping to a page he hadn't seen before. "I drew this last week, before tonight. It was a sketch of two figures, clearly him and her, standing on opposite sides of a canyon. But instead of a bridge connecting them, there were paper airplanes being thrown across the gap. Some made it, most didn't. But they kept throwing. Them. I called it still trying, she explained. Because even when I hated you, even when I couldn't bear the weight of being your daughter, I never stopped trying to reach you. Elon looked at the drawing, seeing years of attempted connections he'd missed. Every art project brought home from school, every invitation to see a play, a recital, a science fair, every text asking if he'd be home for dinner. Paper airplanes, he repeated. They're fragile. Most don't make it across, but they're easy to make and keep trying with. She shrugged. I figured it was better than giving up entirely. And now? She gestured to the painted canvas between them, their bridge emerging stroke by stroke. Now, we're trying to build something more permanent. But it's still made of fragile things, trust, time, truth. He nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his stained hand. I want to learn how to make paper airplanes, Zara. Real ones, metaphorical ones. Any kind you want to teach me. For the first time since entering the E3E art room, she smiled without reservation. Start with listening. That's the foundation. Then move to presence. Physical presence, not just emotional availability you promise from conference rooms. And after that, we figure it out as we go. But Dad? She picked up her brush again. We have to agree to let it be messy. Relationships aren't code you can debug. They're not systems you can optimize. They're just ongoing experiments in being human together. Elon thought about all his companies, all his projects, all the audacious goals he'd set and achieved. None of them had terrified him as much as this, the simple prospect of being fully present with his daughter, accepting that he couldn't control or predict the outcome. I've scheduled my life in 5-minute increments for 20 years, he admitted. Every meeting optimized, every moment maximized for productivity. So start with an hour, 1 hour a week that's just for us. No phones, no agenda, no problem solving, just being in the same room, maybe painting, maybe talking, maybe sitting in comfortable silence. It sounded impossible. It sounded like the easiest thing in the world. What if I mess it up again? You will, she said matter-of-factly. Probably multiple times, but that's when you show up the next week anyway. That's when you prove it's not about being perfect, but about being consistent. She began adding details to their bridge, small touches that made it look more real, more traversable. Dr. Martinez calls it showing up imperfectly. Better than not showing up at all. Elon picked up his brush again, attempting to add his own small details to the bridge. They were clumsy and imperfect, but they were there, his contribution to something they were building together. I've been thinking about South Africa, he said unexpectedly. About my childhood. About how I swore I'd be different from my father. And I think I need to talk to someone too. Not just about how to be a better father, but about why I've been running from it. Zara paused, surprised. Really? If you've been going to therapy for 2 years without me knowing, maybe I need to examine why I've been avoiding it for 48 years. She worked quietly for a moment. It's hard. Therapy. Looking at all the ugly parts you've been ignoring. Harder. Than rocket science? Different hard. Rocket science has right answers. Therapy just has truth. And truth is messy and uncomfortable and doesn't follow equations. Elon added another brush stroke to the bridge. This one was less clumsy, following the lines Zara had established. Maybe it's time I learned to be comfortable with mess. They painted until the sun was high in the sky, their conversation flowing, like it hadn't in years. Sometimes they talked about art techniques, sometimes about therapy and healing. Sometimes they just worked in silence, the rhythm of brush strokes creating its own language. Around noon, Elon's phone buzzed with missed notifications, dozens of missed calls, hundreds of emails. The world outside this art room was continuing without him. Decisions waiting to be made, crises demanding attention. "Go ahead," Zara said, noticing his glance at the phone. "Check it." "No," he said, surprising himself. "They can wait." It was such a simple decision, but it felt revolutionary. For the first time in decades, Elon consciously chose family over the next urgent thing demanding his attention. "Dad?" Zara said softly. "Yeah? Thank you for choosing to stay." He looked at their painting, the bridge now nearly complete, spanning the canvas with imperfect beauty. Then he looked at his daughter, seeing not the problem to be solved or the relationship to be optimized, but the person she was. Complex, talented, wounded, resilient, and still, somehow, willing to try building something new with him. "Thank you for letting me," he replied, "for keeping the bridge option open even when I kept choosing the other side." Outside, the world continued its relentless pace. But inside the art room, for the first time in 8 years, father and daughter were moving at the same speed, painting with the same purpose, building something together, one imperfect stroke at a time. "What should we paint next?" Elon asked, looking at the remaining blank canvases stacked in the corner. Zara grinned. "How about we paint the ugly cloud again? Practice until you get it right. That could take years." "Good thing we're just getting started then." As they prepared new canvases, Elon felt something he hadn't experienced in decades. Not the satisfaction of solving a complex problem or achieving an ambitious goal, but the simple, terrifying, wonderful feeling of being present with someone he loved, with no agenda except to be there, imperfectly human, learning to build bridges with paint and patience and time. The sound of Elon's phone broke the peaceful rhythm they'd established. It wasn't the usual urgent ringtone, but the special one reserved for family emergencies. Both of them froze. "Dad?" Zara looked at him questioningly. He checked the screen. It was Grimes. He answered, putting it on speaker since he'd promised. "Transparency. Babe, where are you?" Grimes's voice was gentle but concerned. "The staff said you never came to bed last night, and your car's been in the garage since yesterday evening. Everything okay?" Elon looked at Zara, who nodded encouragingly. "I'm in the art room with Zara. We're painting." A pause. "Painting?" "It's her birthday," he said, as if that explained everything. In a way, it did. "Oh my God, I completely forgot. The time. It's past noon. Are you guys hungry? I can make something." "Actually," Zara interrupted, speaking up for the first time, "Dad and I were thinking of making breakfast together. Would you like to join us?" Elon stared at his daughter. In all their years, he'd never cooked with her. Never really cooked much at all, beyond sporadically attempting scrambled eggs. "That sounds perfect. I'll head down to the kitchen," Grimes said, clearly pleased. "Fair warning, though. Your father once set water on fire trying to make tea." "That was an electrical issue with the kettle," Elon protested, but he was smiling. When had he last joked about his domestic failures? After hanging up, father and daughter looked at their paint-covered hands and clothes. "We're a mess," Zara noted. "Catastrophic mess," Elon agreed. "But somehow I don't mind." They cleaned their brushes in comfortable silence, then headed to the kitchen together. It was strange walking side by side in the hallway, not hurrying to different destinations, but actually going somewhere together. The kitchen was massive, designed for entertaining. Dozens, but rarely used for family meals. Grimes was already there, looking surprisingly domestic in an apron covered with cartoon octopi. "So," she said, eyeing their paint-stained clothes, "how long have you two been up?" "Since about 9 p.m., Zara admitted. "We kind of lost track of time." Grimes raised an eyebrow. "Doing what?" "Talking," Elon said simply. "Really talking." The pride in his voice was unmistakable. When was the last time he'd been proud of a conversation rather than a product launch? "Good," Grimes said, pulling ingredients from the fridge. "So, what are we making?" Zara opened cabinets, revealing their contents. "Do we have everything for pancakes?" "Probably. Though I should warn you, your dad's pancake-making skills are legendary, and not in a good way." "That's okay," Zara said, surprising everyone. "We're practicing being imperfect today." Elon felt his throat tighten. Such a simple statement, but it contained the entire shift that had happened in that art room. They divided. Tasks. Grimes handled the eggs and bacon, while Elon and Zara tackled pancakes. True to form, Elon's first attempts were disasters. Too much batter here, not enough there, flipped too early or too late. "Dad," Zara laughed as his third pancake stuck to the ceiling, an achievement that defied physics. "Maybe you should stick to stirring." But instead of getting frustrated or defensive, Elon found himself laughing too. "How did that even happen?" "You flipped with too much enthusiasm," Grimes observed, photographing the ceiling pancake with her phone. "Classic rookie mistake." "Don't post that," Elon started to say, then caught himself. The old him would have worried about image control. "Actually, go ahead. Maybe it'll humanize me." Zara paused in her pancake flipping. "Really? You don't care if people see you failing at something domestic?" "Your generation already sees me as that awkward CEO who names his kids weird things. What's one more ceiling pancake?" They finally managed to produce a stack of edible pancakes, though they ranged from perfectly golden to vaguely pancake-shaped crispy things. "They're beautiful," Grimes declared diplomatically, arranging them on a plate. As they sat around the island, not the formal dining room, Elon realized this was the first time they'd eaten a meal he'd helped prepare. The first time he'd sat with Zara for a meal that wasn't squeezed between meetings or dominated by his phone. "Can I ask something?" Grimes ventured, pouring coffee. "Sure," Elon and Zara answered simultaneously, then looked at each other in surprise. "What changed?" "Yesterday. You two could barely be in the same room without awkwardness." Elon looked at his daughter, letting her answer if she wanted to. "We finally had the conversation we should have had 8 years ago," Zara said. "About Mom leaving, about me trying to run away, about everything." Grimes nodded slowly. And we decided to stop pretending everything was fine just because the alternative was messy," Elon added. They ate in comfortable silence for a while. Elon noticed small things, how Zara arranged her bacon in precise patterns before eating it, the way Grimes hummed softly when she was content, how neither of them checked their phones during the meal. "These pancakes are terrible," Zara said, suddenly biting into a particularly crispy one. "Absolutely horrible," Elon agreed cheerfully. "Worst pancakes I've ever had," Grimes chimed in. They all burst out laughing, real, belly laughs that hadn't echoed in this kitchen in years. "You know what?" Elon stood up abruptly. "Let's go see Tallulah." The room went quiet. "What?" Zara set down her fork. Mom's in England. You missed her when you tried to run there. So let's go see her. Today. Your birthday. Dad, that's crazy. You have meetings. SpaceX. SpaceX survived before me and will survive a day without me. Meetings can be rescheduled. But you only turn 16 once. Zara stared at him. You're serious? Completely. There's something Tallulah and I need to discuss anyway. Something about what she told me the day she left. Grimes reached for Elon's hand. Are you sure? I've spent too many years being sure about things that didn't matter. Today, I want to be sure about something that does. Zara pushed back from the counter. I need to pack and shower. And, oh God, I look like I fought with a paint set and lost. We have a private jet, Elon reminded her. We can leave in 2 hours. I'll come too, Grimes offered. If that's okay. Elon looked around the kitchen, at the ceiling pancake, the messy plates, the three of them covered in various degrees of flour and paint. It was chaos. It was imperfect. It was exactly where he wanted to be. Actually, he said, there's something I want to do first. He pulled out his phone and made a call he'd never made before, to his assistant. Cancel everything for the next 48 hours, he said firmly. Family emergency. Is everything all right, sir? Her voice crackled with concern. Everything's perfect. That's the emergency. After hanging up, he faced Zara and Grimes. Now, what's the fastest way to get Pancake off the ceiling? Leave it, Zara suggested. As a reminder. Of what? Of the day Dad chose family over physics. Grimes raised her coffee mug. To choosing family over physics. They clinked mugs and glasses, sealing the promise they'd made in the art room to show up imperfectly, to build bridges messily, to prioritize presence over productivity. 3 hours later, they were boarding the jet bound for London. Elon hadn't checked his phone once. Zara had packed her sketchpad. Grimes had downloaded mindfulness podcasts for the flight. As the plane taxied, Elon looked at his daughter, who was already sketching. Not the sad, desperate art from her secret room, but something lighter, softer. What are you drawing? He asked, leaning over to see. She showed him. 3 figures sitting around a table, laughing, with a pancake drawn stuck to the ceiling above them. It was simple, joyful, real. Think Mom will like it? Zara asked. She'll love it. But more importantly, how do you feel about giving it to her? Zara considered this. Nervous, excited. Grateful that for once, you're coming with me, instead of sending me away with security. The plane lifted off, carrying them toward what Elon knew would be a difficult conversation with Tallulah. But for the first time in years, he wasn't approaching a family situation with the goal of minimizing disruption or optimizing outcomes. He was approaching it as a father who had finally learned that some things, pancakes and conversations and childhood, are supposed to be messy. Dad, Zara said, as California disappeared beneath them. Yeah? Thank you. For sitting in the chair. For learning to paint. For choosing breakfast over your phone. For showing up. Elon squeezed her hand gently. Thank you for waiting for me. They flew toward England, toward Tallulah, toward more bridges to be built, and more truths to be faced. But they flew together, and for the first time in 8 years, that felt like exactly where they were supposed to be. Out the window, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly blue, carrying them toward new conversations, old reconciliations, and the complicated, beautiful work of being a family that had finally stopped running from itself. Zara closed her sketchpad and leaned against her father's shoulder, a gesture that would have been impossible yesterday, but felt entirely natural. Today, think we'll always be this messy? She asked. Probably, Elon admitted. But maybe that's not a bug. Maybe it's a feature. She smiled, closing her eyes as the plane carried them forward. I can live with that. Above them, in a kitchen in California, a pancake remained stuck to the ceiling, a perfect, ridiculous monument to the day everything changed. The Cotswolds looked like something from a fairy tale as their car wound through narrow country lanes. Tallulah lived in a converted cottage that was the exact opposite of the sleek California mansion. All climbing roses and uneven stone walls and character. I haven't been here since the divorce, Zara said quietly, watching the familiar landscape. Pass? Which one? Elon asked, then winced. Sorry, stupid question. The second one. Mom bought this place right after she realized it was really over. Grimes squeezed Zara's hand from the back seat. You okay? Yeah, just weird being back. The last time I was here, I was furious with both of them. Now I'm just tired, I guess. The car pulled up to the cottage just as Tallulah emerged from the garden, wearing muddy boots and a wide-brimmed hat. She froze when she saw all three of them getting out of the car. Zara? Elon? Her British accent made their names sound like questions. What are you doing here? Happy birthday to me, Zara said with a weak smile. Surprise, Tallulah's eyes darted. Between her daughter and ex-husband, noting the paint still under their fingernails, the exhaustion in their faces, the unprecedented fact that they'd traveled together. Come in, she said finally, removing her gardening gloves. I'll put the kettle on. The cottage interior was exactly as Elon remembered. Books everywhere, art on the walls, comfortable mess that spoke of a life fully lived. So different from the minimalist aesthetic of their shared homes. They settled into the living room, an awkward arrangement on overstuffed furniture. Tallulah served tea in mismatched cups, studying their faces with the careful attention he remembered. So, she said, sitting across from Elon, care to explain why my ex-husband and daughter appear to have been rolling in paint and decided to cross an ocean on her birthday? Zara looked at Elon, a silent question in her eyes. He nodded. We need to talk about when you left, Zara said simply. Both times, but especially the last time. Tallulah's composure faltered slightly. Darling, that was years ago. 8 years, 4 months, and 15 days, Elon interrupted. And I finally remember what you said. The room went very quiet. Even Grimes seemed to hold her breath. What did I say? Tallulah asked softly. You said I was a great man, who would probably change the world. But I was a terrible husband, and you were afraid what that was, teaching Zara about love. Tallulah set down her teacup. And you were right. About everything. For the next hour, they talked. Not argued, not accused, just talked. Zara showed Tallulah her art, not all of it, just enough to illustrate the years of longing and pain. Elon admitted to failures he'd never acknowledged before. Tallulah shared her own perspective, the desperate attempts to protect both Elon and Zara from his workaholic tendencies. I kept thinking he'd grow out of it, Tallulah explained, looking at Zara. That one day he'd wake up and realize family was more important than the next launch, the next product, the next revolution. I thought I was doing it for them, Elon said, building a better future. But you forgot to live in the present, Grimes added gently. I've watched you do the same thing. It's why I started making sure we have device-free time. Zara pulled out her sketch pad and showed Tallulah the drawing from that morning. The family laughing over pancakes with one stuck to the ceiling. "This is how I want to remember us," she said. "Not the fights, not the distance, not the perfect public appearances, just real moments." Tallulah studied the drawing for a long time. "You've gotten so talented." "Thanks. Dad's learning to paint too." "Really?" Tallulah looked at Elon with genuine surprise. "I made my first bridge last night," he said. "Structurally unsound, but emotionally significant." For the first time since they'd arrived, Tallulah laughed. A real laugh that reminded Elon why he'd fallen in love with her twice. "Do you remember," she said, "the first time you tried to teach me about rockets? You were so excited, talking a mile a minute, drawing diagrams on napkins in that cafe. And I had no idea what you were talking about, but I loved watching your face light up." "I remember thinking you were the first person who didn't look bored when I started explaining orbital mechanics," Elon replied. "I wasn't bored. I was trying to understand why it mattered so much to you. And I never really explained that, did I?" "No," Tallulah said softly. "You showed me the rockets, but never the dreams behind them. You showed me the work, but never the wonder." Zara looked between her parents. "You both did that. You showed each other everything except what was really in your hearts." The observation hung in the air, not accusatory, just achingly accurate. "I was scared," Elon admitted. "If I showed you the full weight of the dreams, the pressure, the constant fear of failure, I thought you'd realize I was just winging it, like everyone else." "Elon," Tallulah leaned forward, "I divorced you because you never let me see you fail. You never let me help carry the weight. You treated marriage like a business partnership instead of a support system." "I didn't know how to need people," he said quietly. "My father taught me that need was weakness." "Your father was wrong about a lot of things," Tallulah replied. "But his biggest mistake was teaching you that love should be earned rather than given." Zara reached for both their hands. "Can we agree that we're all works in progress? That we've all made mistakes, but we're here now, trying to figure it out?" Grimes nodded. "That's all any family can do." They talked until the sun began to set over the Cotswold Hills. Difficult truths were shared, old wounds acknowledged, new beginnings cautiously explored. At one point, Tallulah broke out a bottle of wine, and they toasted to second chances and messy beginnings. As evening approached, Tallulah showed them the guest rooms. "You'll stay the night, of course." "We have the jet waiting," Elon started to say. "Dad," Zara interrupted gently, "maybe we should stay. When's the last time we all sat at the same dinner table?" He thought about it. Never. In all the years of shared custody, planned visitations, and coordinated birthdays, they'd never simply sat down as the complicated, blended reality of their family. "Dinner would be nice," he agreed, as Zara unpacked. In her childhood bedroom, frozen in time like a museum of her 13-year-old self, Tallulah found Elon on the terrace overlooking the garden. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For finally hearing what I tried to tell you years ago. For bringing her here. For showing up." He leaned against the stone railing. "I'm sorry it took so long. Are you really going to change, Elon? Or is this just another project for you? Fix relationship with daughter right there in your task manager next to colonize Mars." The question was fair. The old him would have been offended, defensive, but he'd spent the night painting with Zara, crying over missed opportunities, admitting he didn't have answers. "I'm in therapy next week," he said. "First session, assuming I don't get scared and cancel." Tallulah's eyebrows rose. "Really? Really? Zara's been going for 2 years without telling me. Seemed like I should follow her lead. She's wise beyond her years." She had to be. Because I wasn't there to shield her from growing up too fast. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the English countryside fade into twilight. Inside, they could hear Zara and Grimes laughing about something, their voices mixing with the sounds of dinner preparation. "Do you think we can do this?" Elon asked. "Actually be a family? Even a broken, non-traditional one?" "I think Zara needs us to try, and I think we owe her that much." "More than that," he said. "We owe her the truth about why we failed, what we've learned, how we're going to do better." Tallulah nodded. No more perfect public images. No more protecting each other from difficult emotions. Real, messy, honest family. Real, messy, honest family, he repeated, testing how the words felt. "Think I can learn that?" "You built a company that landed rockets vertically," she reminded him. "I suspect you can learn anything if you're motivated enough." "I'm motivated." She studied his face in the fading light. "Good, because she deserves parents who show up. All of us do." They went back inside to find Zara teaching Grimes to make shepherd's pie, something she'd learned from Tallulah years ago. The kitchen was a disaster of chopped vegetables and spilled gravy, but everyone was laughing. "Dad!" Zara called. "Set the table? We're eating family style tonight." He found himself automatically reaching for his phone to check emails, then stopped. There would always be another urgent message, another crisis demanding attention. But there wouldn't always be another chance to have dinner with his family in a cottage kitchen in England. He set the table with the care he usually reserved for system checks, placing each piece of mismatched china deliberately. This wasn't the formal dining he was used to, with place cards and perfectly aligned silverware. This was permission to be imperfect together. As they gathered around the old wooden table, Tallulah, Elon, Grimes, and Zara, something shifted. Not dramatically, not with fireworks or profound declarations, just a quiet settling into the idea that this, messy and complicated and real, was family. Zara raised her glass of juice. "To my 16th birthday. Weirdest and best one yet." "To bridges painted and pancakes stuck on ceilings," Grimes added. "To second chances," Tallulah contributed, meeting Elon's eyes. "To showing up," Elon concluded, "even when it's terrifying." They clinked glasses, mismatched sizes and shapes, just like them. Outside, the English evening wrapped around the cottage like a blanket, holding them all in its gentle darkness. For the first time in years, they were simply a family having dinner together, imperfect, honest, and finally present. They flew back to California the next morning, but something was different. Elon sat with Zara instead of retreating to the plane's office. They spent the flight looking through her sketchpad together, with Zara explaining the meaning behind each artwork. "This one," she said, pointing to a drawing from 2 years ago, "was after you missed my freshman art show because of the Starship presentation." "I remember that presentation," Elon said quietly. "It went perfectly. Standing ovation, excellent press coverage. I thought it was one of my best performances. I won first place that night. Ms. Chen tried to call you during the ceremony." He had a vague memory of letting the call go to voicemail. Another achievement efficiently handled by delegation. "Show me the rest," he said, needing to understand the full weight of what he'd missed. Zara flipped through pages chronicling a silent history of their relationship. Each drawing told a story he'd been too busy to notice. Her science fair project about sustainable energy, inspired by his work. Her self-portrait as a rocket scientist, wearing his signature jacket. Her painting of Mars with a small house. In the corner, labeled for when Dad visits. "You painted yourself a house on Mars?" Elon asked, touched despite the sadness. "I figured if you were going there anyway, maybe I'd get more time with you on another planet than I did on Earth." The geek honesty of it hit him like a physical blow. His daughter had literally imagined a future on Mars because it seemed more likely to get his attention than her present on Earth. When they landed, instead of immediately rushing to catch up on emails, Elon made a decision. "Let's drive home, all of us, together." "The Tesla's only a 4-seater, Grimes pointed out. "Then we'll take the Suburban." It was such a normal family choice that Zara laughed. "Dad, when's the last time you drove anything that seats more than 2 people?" "Probably 2016, he admitted. "But there's a first time for everything." The drive home should have been quick, but they took surface streets instead of the highway. Grimes controlled the music, playing songs Elon had never heard, but Zara knew by heart. At one point, they stopped for gas and snacks, something so mundane that Elon felt like an anthropologist observing normal family life. "Dad," Zara said as he fumbled with the gas pump, "you know you can just tap your card and pump, right?" "I'm aware of the technology," he replied with mock dignity, then admitted, "but I don't think I've pumped my own gas since college." Inside the convenience store, they wandered the aisles like any other family. Grimes debated the merits of different chip flavors. Zara gravitated toward art supplies. Elon found himself genuinely interested in the selection of novelty sodas. "Look," Zara held up a pack of neon gel pens. "Perfect for drawing galaxies." "Buy them," Elon said immediately. "Dad, there's $7 for—" "I said buy them, and whatever else you want." He paused, realizing he was falling into the old pattern of solving with money. "I mean, let's get them, and later you can show me how to use them for galaxy drawing." Back in the car, they drove through neighborhoods Elon had never seen despite living in LA for decades. Strip malls, community centers, small parks, where real families pushed swings and walked dogs. "This is where I taught Zara to drive," Grimes mentioned, as they passed an empty parking lot. "You taught her?" Elon was surprised. "When?" "6 months ago. You were at the Gigafactory opening in Berlin." Another milestone he'd missed, delegated without realizing. "How did it go?" Zara grinned. "I only hit 2 traffic cones. Grimes says that's practically professional." "I should have been there," Elon said simply. "Maybe next time," Zara replied, then added, "But Dad, you're here now. That matters more than perfect attendance." When they finally arrived home, it was early evening. The house felt different. Not changed physically, but the energy was lighter, more breathable. "I need to do something," Elon announced as they settled into the kitchen. "Zara, do you still have your childhood diary? The one Tallulah gave me? You want to read more?" Zara looked uncertain. "I want to return it to you. And I want to read the letters you wrote but never sent, if you're willing to share them." Zara hesitated, then nodded. "They're in my room. But Dad, some of them are really angry." "I can handle angry. It's the hidden sadness I wasn't prepared for." While she went upstairs, Grimes made tea, and Elon sat at the kitchen counter, studying the paint still under his fingernails. Such a small detail, but evidence of time spent in her world instead of his own. Zara returned with a stack of papers, notebook pages, loose sheets, even some drawn on napkins and receipts. She set them down carefully. "These are just thoughts I had over the years, things I wanted to tell you, but didn't know how." Elon picked up the first one, dated when she was 8. Dear Dad, I made a robot out of cardboard today. Mom says it looks just like your Optimus drawings. I want to show you, but you're in China for the factory. I'll save it for when you get back. Below that, in different ink, you came back but went straight to the office. Robot is in trash now. Daiji, additions, written in different times, were tiny historical footnotes of their relationship. Excitement, followed by resignation. Hope eroded by repetition. He read another. Dear Dad, I know you're changing the world and that's important, but I got my period today and I don't know who to talk to. Mom's in England and Grimes doesn't know. I watched a YouTube video instead. Wish you weren't afraid of girl problems. This one had a later addition too. Grimes found out eventually and helped. She's good at being there. I was afraid, he admitted, looking up at Zara. Not just of girl problems, but of anything I couldn't solve with engineering. I know, she said softly. I figured that out. He continued reading, each letter a window into moments he'd been too busy to notice. Her winning the science fair. Her first heartbreak. Her growing anxiety about being Elon Musk's daughter. Her discovery of art as refuge. But what struck him weren't just the missed moments. It was how often she'd tried to connect through his interests. Letters about rocket designs she'd drawn, questions about AI that showed remarkable understanding, even attempts at coding shared with pride. You were studying everything I was working on, he realized. I thought if I understood your world, you'd let me into it, she shrugged. Instead, I mostly learned enough to know how much I didn't know, and how impossible it would be to ever measure up. The final letter in the stack was dated just last week. Dear Dad, tomorrow I turn 16. I've been writing these letters for 8 years. I know you'll never read them. I'm not even sure I want you to anymore. But I'm putting them in a box tonight, like closing a chapter. Maybe someday I'll actually send them. Maybe someday you'll actually have time to read them. Maybe someday we'll actually talk instead of me just imagining what you might say. Tonight, though, I'm just going to hope that turning 16 means I can stop trying to earn your attention and start figuring out how to be okay without it. The kitchen was completely silent. Even the usual background hum of appliances seemed muted. But you didn't have to figure it out alone, Elon said finally. I'm here now, reading them now. Almost too late, Zara whispered. But not too late, Grimes added firmly. Zara, those letters document the past. What matters is what you write tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that. Elon gathered the letters carefully, treating them with the reverence he usually reserved for technical specifications. Can I keep these? Not to punish myself, but to understand, to remember. Only if you promise to write back, Zara said. Real responses, not your usual sounds good, proud of you texts. I promise to write real responses with terrible handwriting and probably some spelling errors, and inappropriate use of technical jargon, Grimes added. That too, he agreed, with a slight smile. Zara moved around the counter to stand closer to him. There's something else. What? I got into art school, Parsons, in New York. She said it like a confession. I've known for 3 months, but was scared to tell you. Elon's first instinct was to immediately solve this. Tuition costs, housing arrangements, security protocols. Instead, he took a breath and asked the question he should have asked first. How do you feel about it? Terrified. Excited. Free. She paused. Proud, I think. You should be proud. Zara, that's incredibly difficult to achieve. But? No buts. I'm just... I'm proud, too. He swallowed hard. And I'm scared of you being so far away when we're just starting to figure this out. Dad, I've been far away for years while living in the same house. Distance isn't the problem. She was right. Of course. Their physical proximity had been meaningless when emotional connection was absent. Will you show me your portfolio? Really? Really? And maybe you can explain why you chose art school over engineering. I think I finally understand it's not a rejection of everything I value. It's you finding your own way to create. As Zara retrieved her portfolio, Elon organized the letters chronologically. 8 years of missed communication, small attempts at connection, hopes and disappointments documented in increasingly sophisticated handwriting. But instead of feeling like evidence of irreparable damage, they now felt like a bridge. Proof that even during their most distant years, she'd been trying to build connection. And now, finally, he was ready to cross it. Ready? She asked, returning with a thick black portfolio. Ready, he confirmed, closing the last letter and giving her his full attention. For the first time in 8 years, he was choosing present over past, hope over regret, and his daughter's voice over the constant noise of world-changing ambitions. CT letters would remain as reminders, but tonight was about writing new stories together. Zara spread her portfolio across the kitchen island, while Elon tried to pretend he wasn't nervous. After all the letters, all the missed moments, would he understand her art? Would he see what she was really trying to say? The first piece took his breath away. It was a massive charcoal drawing titled Launch Sequence, but instead of a rocket, it showed a girl breaking free from tangled wires and equations, floating upward with paintbrushes for wings. This is... He started, then stopped, really looking at it. This is about you, not me. Everything I create is somehow about both of us, Zara admitted. I can't separate who I am from whose daughter I am, but this piece, this is about taking that relationship and making it mine instead of letting it define me. She turned to another piece, a series of portraits showing the same person rendered in different styles. Photorealistic, abstract, cubist, impressionist. All clearly her, but viewed through different lenses. Identity studies, she explained. Who am I when people see Musk? Who am I when they don't know my last name? Who do I want to be? The series won first place at the Southern California Young Artists Competition. When? Last month, while you were at the Battery Day conference. Another missed moment, but this time Elon didn't spiral into guilt. Show me more. There were landscapes, where rockets grew like trees, portraits of anonymous faces wearing space helmets, abstract pieces that looked like circuit boards until you stepped back and saw they formed constellations. Each piece was clearly accomplished, mature beyond her. Years. Zara, these are really good. You sound surprised. Not surprised by your talent, he clarified. Surprised by how distinctly your own voice is. I always thought you'd be interested in engineering because of proximity, but this is something entirely different and entirely yours. She paused, considering. Remember when you took me to the Van Gogh exhibit when I was 10? Vaguely. He tried to recall the details. You spend the whole time explaining the physics of color theory and the chemistry of his paints. I spent the whole time staring at his brushstrokes, wondering what it felt like to be so desperate to capture a moment that you attacked the canvas. And I missed that completely. Because you see the world through one lens, Dad. And that's okay. It's exactly the lens needed to put humans on Mars. but I see it through a different one." She pulled out her most recent piece, still wet with paint. It was the bridge from their early morning session, but completed now. Two figures stood on either side, one surrounded by rockets and equations, one surrounded by stars and paintbrushes, reaching toward each other across a bridge made of light. "It's us," Elon said softly. "It's possibility," Zara corrected. "It's not about you becoming an artist or me becoming an engineer. It's about us meeting in the middle, understanding that we speak different languages, but we can still communicate." Grimes had been quietly observing. "Show him the SpaceX series." Zara hesitated, then pulled out another set of pieces. These were different. Technical drawings of rockets, but reimagined as organic forms. The Dragon capsule as a flower opening in space. The Falcon Heavy as a tree with boosters for branches. Starship as a seed pod waiting to bloom on Mars. "This is how I see your work," she explained. "Not just technology, but life, growth, potential." Elon studied the drawings, seeing his life's work through completely new eyes. "They're beautiful, and they're more accurate than you know. The biomimicry in some of our designs." "I do the research, Dad. I've been reading your interviews, following the launches, learning about orbital mechanics. Not because I want to be you, but because understanding your world helps me understand you. And I've been missing yours entirely." "Until now," she said. "Want to see something crazy?" She pulled out her phone and showed him a video, footage from earlier NASA broadcasts, SpaceX launches, and Tesla events, but edited together with her artwork. His voice explaining rocket science played over her paintings of organic spacecraft. Her drawings morphed into real launches. It was beautiful, jarring, and somehow perfectly synchronized. "You made this?" "Last year. I wanted to see if I could create a dialogue between our worlds instead of them being separate universes." Elon watched, mesmerized. His daughter had been creating this conversation for years. He just hadn't been listening. "I want to commission you," he said suddenly. "What?" "SpaceX. Our new mission to Mars. I want you to create the official artwork. Not because you're my daughter, but because this," he gestured to the video, "this captures something about what we're trying to do that pure technical specs miss." Zara stared at him. "You're serious?" "Completely. But I have one condition." "Here we go," she muttered, but she was smiling. "The condition is that we work on it together. Not me telling you what to create, but you teaching me to see what you see. A real collaboration." She set down her portfolio and studied his face. "You'd make time for that?" "I'll make time for that. What about your meetings? The board? The endless conferences?" Elon pulled out his phone and, in front of both of them, made a call. "Schedule a recurring meeting," he told his assistant. 3 hours every Wednesday afternoon. Block it for the next 6 months. Priority level 1, meaning nothing short of actual rocket explosions can override it. "Who's the meeting with, sir?" "My daughter. We're working on a collaboration project." After hanging up, he faced Zara. "What else do I need to do to prove this isn't just today's enthusiasm?" Zara exchanged a look with Grimes, then said, "Actually, talk to the media about family. Not the perfect image stuff, not the everything's great sound bites. Real talk about what we've been working through." The old Elon would have bristled at the PR implications. Instead, he said, "Okay. And therapy. You mentioned it to Mom, but I want to see follow-through. I have my first appointment next Tuesday. And family dinners, real ones. Once a week, no phones?" "Done," she paused. "And one more thing. You mentioned having a family meeting with all your kids. Let's do it. Let's actually be a blended family instead of pretending the complicated parts don't exist." Elon nodded slowly. This wasn't about fixing the past. It was about building something sustainable for the future. "When?" he asked. "Next weekend. Here. All the kids who want to come, you, me, Grimes if she wants." "I want," Grimes confirmed. "Okay," Elon agreed, "but I want to do one more thing first." He walked to his home office and returned with something they hadn't seen in years. An old Polaroid camera. "Let's take a picture. Now. Today. As we are." They gathered in the kitchen, still paint-stained, tired from travel, scattered portfolio, pieces around them. No styling, no planning, just the four of them. Elon, Zara, Grimes, and the stack of unsent letters that had finally found their recipient. As the photo developed, Elon watched their faces emerge in the chemical process. Imperfect, honest, together. "For the record," he said, affixing the photo to the refrigerator next to a drawing Zara had made in 3rd grade. "This is the first photo I've put up in my own home in 8 years." Zara studied the Polaroid. "We look like a family." "A messy, complicated, still figuring it out family," Grimes added. "The best kind," Elon said, and meant it. That night, after Grimes went to her studio and Zara to her room, Elon sat at his desk and did something he hadn't done since college. He wrote a letter by hand. "Dear Zara," he began, his handwriting already, proving his earlier warning about illegibility. "I don't have answers yet to the 8 years of letters you wrote me, but I wanted to start somewhere. Today I learned that you see my rockets as flowers. That made me wonder what else I've been seeing wrong all these years." He wrote for hours, filling pages with thoughts that had been locked away behind schedules and systems. When he finally set down the pen, dawn was approaching again. The second in 2 days he'd witnessed, not from an airplane window, but from his own home. The next morning, Elon found Zara in the kitchen, already mixing paints. "What are you working on?" he asked, genuinely curious. "Letters of response," she said, showing him a canvas where she was painting illuminated manuscript-style replies to his response. "I thought we could try mixed media communication. You write, I illustrate your words, or vice versa." He sat beside her, watching her work. "Think the Mars Commission can wait until after we finish our first letter exchange?" She grinned. "Mars has waited billions of years for human visitors. I think it can spare a few weeks while a father and daughter catch up on their correspondence." ITC. She painted, and he prepared to write his second letter in decades. Elon realized that building bridges between worlds, whether Mars and Earth or parent and child, required the same fundamental principle: showing up consistently with patience and paying attention to what's actually there, not what you want to see. The hardest part wasn't the engineering. It was the presence, the being, the messy, imperfect art of being human together. But looking at his daughter, painting responses to words he'd never thought to write, watching her create beauty from the wreckage of their history, Elon finally understood that some achievements couldn't be measured in quarterly reports or launch statistics. Some victories were as simple and complex as two people learning to speak each other's language, one letter at a time. Chapter 11. New Perspectives. 1 month later, Elon found himself in a place he never imagined, sitting in a circle with 8 strangers, talking about his father. "The ironic thing," he told Dr. Martinez, his new therapist, "is that I spent my whole life trying not to be like him, but I ended up recreating the same dynamic with my own kids." "How so?" Dr. Martinez asked. "He was there, but emotionally unavailable. I was physically absent, but thought I was emotionally available. Turns out, neither approach works particularly well. The group therapy session was Zara's suggestion. If you're going to talk about family stuff, why not practice with strangers first, she'd said. Less embarrassing when you mess up. Elon had to admit she was right. Talking in the group was like practicing scales before attempting a symphony. Each week, he grew more comfortable with uncomfortable truths. That afternoon, he made it home in time for Wednesday Art Hour, their standing appointment that had quickly become the highlight of his week. Zara was already in the observatory, 3 canvases in progress. "How was therapy?" she asked, not looking up from her painting. "Productive, uncomfortable, worth it." He washed his hands and joined her at the easel. "What are we working on today?" "I thought we'd start the Mars series. The first piece is about anticipation, what Mars represents before we get there." She'd been doing this for weeks now, teaching him to paint while working on the SpaceX commission. It was an odd dichotomy, discussing orbital mechanics while mixing colors, explaining radiation shielding while perfecting brush techniques. "Dr. Martinez says I have control issues," Elon admitted, as he attempted to paint a smooth gradient like Zara had shown him. "Who knew?" she laughed. "Dad, you once tried to optimize the way I tied my shoes. We all knew." Fair point. His gradient looked more like a crime scene than a sunset. "But I'm working on it. Yesterday, I let my assistant choose the meeting agenda without pre-approving every item. Revolutionary behavior." She guided his brush with her hand. "Like this. Confident strokes. Let the paint flow." They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of shared quiet that would have been impossible a month ago. Elon had learned that sometimes the best conversations happened while doing something else. "Dad," Zara said eventually, "can I ask you something weird?" "Everything you ask is weird. That's what I like about it." "I want to know about your dreams, not your business dreams or Mars dreams. What you dream about when you sleep." He paused mid-brush stroke. "Why?" "Because I've been having these dreams about flying, but not in rockets. Just me, floating through space, talking to planets. Dr. Martinez says dreams can help us understand our subconscious. Since when do you see Dr. Martinez?" "Since I asked if we could share a therapist. She specializes in families. I thought it might help if we had the same toolkit for talking about stuff." Elon set down his brush. The fact that his daughter was choreographing their therapy journey should have bothered him, but instead, he felt grateful. "I dream about falling," he admitted. "Not from physical heights, just falling behind, failing to deliver, letting people down. Usually I wake up when I hit the ground." And since we started doing this," he gestured to their painting setup, "the dreams have changed. Now I usually start to fall, but then I remember I can paint wings." Zara paused, looking at him directly. "That's the most poetic thing you've ever said to me." "Therapy," he said, as if that explained everything. Their phones buzzed simultaneously. Grimes in the family group chat. "Family dinner at 6. Making tacos. Xavier and Griffin confirmed. Haven't heard from Kai and Saxon yet." "Big night," Zara commented. "Your first official family dinner with all the kids." Elon felt his stomach tighten. Not anxiety, but anticipation mixed with old fears. What if it's awkward? It will be awkward, but we're practicing being okay with awkward, remember? Right. Embracing the mess, exactly. They finished their painting session with the beginnings of a Mars landscape. Not the technical Mars of geological surveys, but the emotional Mars of possibility and wonder. Elon had to admit his artistic skills were improving. The gradient. Today looked less like a crime scene and more like a slightly aggressive sunset. By 6 o'clock, the kitchen was full of chaos. Xavier and Griffin arrived with tales from their college adventures. Kai and Saxon texted that they were running late. Typical teenager stuff. Grimes orchestrated the taco assembly with the precision of a military operation, while Zara sketched quick portraits of everyone on paper placemats. "Dad," Xavier said, watching Elon attempt to properly set the table, apparently there was a specific way to fold napkins. "When did you become domestic?" "I'm practicing," Elon replied, focusing on the napkin fold. "Turns out, there's more to running a household than automated systems." "Whoa," Griffin said. "No jokes about how we should design a napkin-folding robot?" "I considered it," Elon admitted. Then Zara pointed out that sometimes the inefficient human way creates more conversation opportunities. The brothers exchanged looks. This was clearly different from the father they knew. When Kai and Saxon finally arrived, the kitchen was full of competing conversations, flying tortillas, and Grimes's attempt to maintain some semblance of order. Elon found himself in the middle of it, not retreating to his phone or finding excuses to work late. "Okay," Grimes announced once everyone had plates. "Ground rules. Everyone shares one thing. Can be anything. Good news, complaint, random thought. Dad, you start." All eyes turned to Elon. The old him would have shared a business update, something safe and factual. Instead, he looked around the table at his collection of children. Different ages, different mothers, different relationships. With him, and said, "I've been learning to paint. Zara's been teaching me, and I'm terrible at it, which is new and terrifying and somehow good for me." Silence. Then Saxon. "Wait, you're painting? Like actual art?" "Attempting art," Elon clarified. "My clouds look like explosions and my trees resemble cellular towers, but yes." "Can we see?" Kai asked, genuinely curious. Zara pulled out her phone and showed photos of their recent work. Elon's progression from absolute disaster to merely terrible, mixed with her own sophisticated pieces. "This is..." Xavier studied the images. "Different. Different good or different concerning?" Elon asked, only half joking. "Different real," Griffin said. "Like seeing you actually suck at something, instead of immediately being an expert. It's weirdly reassuring." "Yeah," Saxon added. "I spent years afraid to try new things because I thought I had to be instantly amazing like you. Nice to know you can be a beginner too." The conversation shifted as each kid shared their update. Xavier talked about his computer science program. Griffin mentioned his band getting a gig. Kai discussed their latest photography project. Saxon admitted to struggling with anxiety about college applications. But something was different about this dinner. Instead of each person sharing in isolation while Elon mentally reviewed emails, there were actual responses. Questions, follow-ups, moments where someone's story prompted another's memory. "Remember," Zara said at one point, "when Dad took us all to see the first Falcon Heavy launch? Saxon was so little, he fell asleep during the countdown." "I did not," Saxon protested, but he was laughing. "You were snoring," Xavier confirmed. "Right through the sonic boom." "At least I didn't try to analyze the thrust vectors during takeoff," Griffin shot back. "Hey, that's educational," Elon defended. "Though I admit the timing could have been better." The teasing continued, but it felt different now. Less like keeping him at arm's length and more like including him in the family mythology. After dinner, while cleaning up, Kai lingered in the kitchen with Elon. "Dad, can I ask you something?" "Sure. How come you're different lately?" Elon considered the question while loading the dishwasher, another recently acquired domestic skill. I realized I was spending so much time building the future that I was missing the present. And the present is where my kids are, where life actually happens. The future will arrive regardless. But these moments, he gestured to the kitchen full of evidence of family dinner, messy plates, scattered drawings, half-eaten tacos. These moments require showing up. Kai nodded slowly. Saxon mentioned you've been going to therapy. Yeah. Turns out there's no algorithm for being a good parent. You just have to keep trying and be willing to admit when you're wrong. And paint clouds that look like explosions? Especially that, Elon agreed. Sometimes the best lessons come from accepting you're terrible at something but doing it anyway. Kai hugged him then. Awkward, quick, but real. Thanks, Dad, for, being here. Later that evening, after the kids had dispersed to their various homes and activities, Elon found himself alone with Grimes in the quiet kitchen. That was good, she said simply. It was messy. The best things usually are. That night, when Elon finally climbed into bed, he didn't immediately reach for his phone to review the day's missed emails. Instead, he lay in the dark, replaying moments from the dinner. His phone did buzz with a text, but it was from the family group chat. Zara had posted a photo, a quick charcoal sketch she'd made during dinner showing all of them around the table, caught in various states of eating, talking, laughing. Below it, she'd written, "First of many. Love you all." Responses flooded in. Emojis from the younger kids. "Save this one for the family archives," from Xavier. "When's next taco night?" From Griffin, Elon typed, "Same time next week?" and hit send before he could overthink it. The responses were immediate and unanimous. Yes. As he drifted off to sleep, Elon realized his dreams were changing again. Tonight, he didn't feel like he was falling. Instead, he felt like he was slowly learning to land, not in the dramatic rocket-powered way he was used to, but in the gentle, repeated practice of showing up, messing up, and trying again tomorrow. The last thing he heard before sleep was Grimes humming while working in her studio, a sound he'd heard countless times, but only now recognized as one of the small symphonies that made a house feel like home. 6 months later, the gallery buzzed with an unusual energy. The Conversations with Dad collection was about to debut, and Zara stood among the canvases she'd created during the most transformative year of her life. "Are you nervous?" Elon asked, adjusting his tie. He'd chosen to wear something more formal than his usual black t-shirt, sensing this evening deserved the respect of occasion. "Terrified," Zara admitted, smoothing her dress. "But in a good way. The kind of scared that means you're doing something important." The gallery walls told their story in chronological order. The early paintings of empty chairs had been joined by new pieces. Chairs where both seats were occupied, conversations that had actually happened, bridges that had been crossed rather than just imagined. Grimes arrived with Tallulah, who had flown in from England for the opening. Seeing them together, his ex-wife and current partner chatting easily about Zara's artistic development, struck Elon as both surreal and perfectly natural. "She's changed," Tallulah said quietly, watching Zara greet early guests. "There's a lightness in her that wasn't there before." "We both have," Elon replied. Turns out, therapy and painting are remarkably effective remedies for emotional constipation. Tallulah laughed, a real laugh that reminded him of better times. Only you would describe personal growth in terms of digestive function. The gallery filled quickly. Art critics, family friends, colleagues from SpaceX and Tesla. But what surprised Elon were the other faces. Kids from Zara's school, people he didn't recognize who had clearly come specifically for her work. Zara Musk's universe is intimate, yet universal, one critic was explaining to someone. She explores the complexity of powerful family dynamics while somehow making it accessible to anyone who's ever felt unseen. Near the centerpiece of the exhibition hung the painting Zara had started on her 16th birthday, The Girl Who Loved Rockets. But now it was complete. Two figures stood before a rocket that morphed into a paintbrush, both reaching toward it. The father's face was no longer blank. It wore an expression of wonder, not at the technology, but at the person beside him. Elon studied it, still moved by how his daughter had captured something he'd never been able to articulate about their journey. "That one's not for sale," Zara said, joining him. "Why not?" "Because it's yours. Our first collaboration, in a way. I can't sell the moment I finally painted your face with love instead of absence." He hugged her then, still carefully, still learning the physical language of affection, but genuine. "The press is here," Grimes warned, appearing at their side. 3 major art journals, and someone from the Times. "Ready for questions?" Zara took a deep breath. For someone who had spent years avoiding media attention, putting herself this public was revolutionary. "Actually," Elon said, "I have a better idea." He walked to the gallery's microphone, causing a ripple of interest. Elon Musk giving a speech at his daughter's art opening was news in itself. "Good evening," he began, his voice carrying across the room. "Most of you know me as the guy who builds rockets and cars. Some might think I'm here as the proud parent doing the obligatory thing. But I'm actually here as Zara's student." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. "You see, my daughter has spent the past year teaching me her language. It's taken me 48 years to understand that success in business and science doesn't translate to success in relationships. That you can send rockets to space while completely missing what's happening in your own home." He gestured to the paintings around them. These works document a different kind of mission, one where I was failing spectacularly. But they also show something else, that it's never too late to change course. The gallery was completely silent now. In January, I found Zara crying alone on her 16th birthday. Tonight, we're standing together in a room full of her art, celebrating not just her talent, but the bridges we've learned to build together. The conversations we've finally started having. The imperfect, messy, wonderful process of becoming a real family. He looked at Zara, who had tears in her eyes. "I want to announce something. The SpaceX Mars mission will feature original artwork by my daughter. Not because of nepotism, but because she sees our greatest ambitions through a lens of hope and humanity that pure technology lacks." Applause broke out, but Elon wasn't finished. "But more than that, I want every parent here to know that your children are documenting your relationship through art, through behavior, through dreams and fears you might never see. Pay attention. Show up. It's the most important work you'll ever do, and there's no algorithm for success. Just presence, persistence, and a willingness to admit when you're wrong." He stepped away from the microphone and returned to Zara, who was openly crying now. "Dad," she whispered. "That was terrifying," he admitted. "But true." The evening flowed like a celebration should. Guests moving through the exhibition, engaging with the art, making connections between the personal story and their own experiences. Several pieces sold before the official opening ended, but the true victory happened in smaller moments. Kai and Saxon helping Zara explain her technique to interested viewers. Griffin posting photos to social media with genuine pride. Xavier, surprising everyone by purchasing one of the pieces for his dorm room. Dad, look, Zara said, pointing across the room. In the corner, an elderly woman was crying in front of one of the earlier empty chair paintings. Next to her, a teenage girl held her hand, clearly a grandmother and granddaughter working through their own relationship challenges. That's what art is supposed to do, Grimes observed. Make people feel less alone in their struggles. As the evening wound down, a journalist approached with one final question. Mr. Musk, what's next? Another company? Another mission to push human boundaries? Elon looked around the gallery, at his daughter's documented journey, at his blended family scattered throughout the room, at the evidence that the most important frontiers were sometimes the most intimate ones. Next Wednesday at 3, he said, I have an appointment to learn how to paint trees that don't look like cellular towers. After that, family taco night. Then maybe we'll plan some rockets to Mars. The journalist laughed, thinking he was joking, but Elon was entirely serious. Later, as they stood outside waiting for cars, Zara handed him something wrapped in brown paper. What's this? Your last assignment before you graduate from Zara's School of Emotional Intelligence. He unwrapped it, carefully, revealing a canvas. It was a self-portrait, not of Zara, but of him, painted in her style, showing him with paintbrush in hand, surrounded by swirling galaxies that formed the word present. You painted me, he said, touched. I painted, you seeing yourself the way I see you now. Not perfect, but here. Not the father who missed everything, but the one who finally showed up. Looking at the painting, Elon understood that this was the real engineering challenge. Not reaching Mars, not revolutionary technology, but the daily work of maintaining connection, of choosing presence over productivity, of loving imperfectly but consistently. Thank you, he said, and meant it more than he'd meant anything in years. As they drove home, all of them, in one car, arguing about music choices and debating where to grab late-night food, Elon realized the ceiling pancake was still there. In the kitchen, a stubborn reminder of when everything started to change. Some monuments to progress weren't meant to be taken down. The next morning, Zara found him in the observatory at sunrise, painting alone. The bridge they'd started months ago was now complete, spanning the canvas with confident strokes. But he was working on something new, not another bridge, but a constellation. Each star was labeled with a name: Zara, Kai, Saxon, Griffin, Xavier, Grimes, even Tallulah. What are you painting? She asked, settling beside him. A map, he said simply, of everyone who taught me that the greatest achievements aren't about reaching the stars, but about connecting the hearts that orbit around each other. She picked up a brush and began adding to his work, not correcting it, but contributing to it. Outside, California woke slowly, the morning light catching on the windows of a house where pancakes might still get stuck on ceilings, where imperfect art covered the walls, and where every Wednesday afternoon was carefully guarded for conversations that no longer needed to be imagined. This was the real revolution. A father and daughter painting side by side, creating something together that was more beautiful than anything either could have achieved alone. That was the end of this heartwarming about Elon Musk and his daughter Zara's journey from emotional distance to genuine connection. We hope their story reminded you that even the busiest, most successful people can find their way back to what truly matters: family. Thank you for listening. We're curious, where are you listening from? Drop a comment below and let us know. If you enjoyed this story, Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring tales about real relationships and human connection. We share these stories because everyone deserves to be reminded that it's never too late to change, to grow, and to strengthen the bonds that matter most. Share this video with your friends and family. You never know who might need to hear this. Message today. Together, we can spread kindness and awareness about the importance of being present for the people we love. Thank you for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next video.